Hi, this is Nikki from Wildflower Studio. Today we're going to be making a 3D spinner on a swivel in this gorgeous clear stained glass with texture. You can purchase this pre-cut kit and many others in the link below. I would rate this kit as intermediate because it does require the use of a jig and some know-how. But we do have many other kits available, including beginner kits and beginner tutorials. So let's take a look at this kit. So this is our pre-packaged, pre-cut Wildflower Studio kit. And all of our kits come in this packaging sent directly to you with a pattern. So let's take a look at what you get. You're going to have 6 pieces of glass, some wire, and this really cool dangly for the middle. In addition to this kit, you'll need copper foil, FID, scissors, solder, flux and brush, soldering iron, and some pliers. You will also need this jig to build your project on, and there is a tutorial link to learn how to build this jig. So on to the first step, which is foiling. I am using a black back 1/4 inch copper foil for my project today because I am using black patina and I need my inside to match my outside. I like to begin my piece pressing down onto the copper foil and holding in place while I move my piece around. These inside curves can be really fussy, so it's really important to get them right in all ways. So we don't want to make a gap between our foil and our glass in that curve. We want it really, really tight. And you're just trying to stay centered as you go. You want the same amount of overlap on either side of your glass of copper foil. So I've overlapped the beginning by about 1/8 of an inch. And this next step is called burnishing. We achieve this with our hands doing a little pinching. And then we're going to use our FID right here to smooth out any rough spots. And we really want to adhere that copper foil onto our glass. The goal is to get as much contact as we can. So the inside corner can be really, really fussy and it can tear if you do not do it correctly. So if you don't take your time and you just press this foil over because you just want it to stick, you're going to find these little tears that happen. When those happen, our solder cannot adhere to those tears. So we need to do it a little bit slower and a little bit smoother. So I'm going to show you how to do it exactly right the first time. Okay, so now we're going to look at what it looks like to foil this piece perfectly, and I'm going to need my readers for this. So again, I'm just going to press my foil right onto my piece. It adheres really tightly. I like to move my glass around to my foil. For every way that I show somebody to do this, there's usually a few other right ways and some wrong ways. This is just the way that I do it. And get your foil all the way around. Leave that little overlap up to 1/4 of an inch. And now we're going to press our sides down. And we're going to grab our FID. And we're going to start smoothing our foil. So I like to do my outside edges first. It helps move any foil to either side so that I don't have any really rough spots. This inside curve we're back to. So let's see what it looks like to get it right. We want to go back and forth. The angle of our FID, we're going to begin up and down nearly at 90 degrees, and then we're going to end almost completely flat to the piece. Copper foil is a metal, copper is really malleable, so it's going to stretch. And we want to give it the time and the effort to let it stretch. And if we don't, that's when you see those tears. Right now, I'm finishing the burnishing by smoothing all of my sides. So I really like to take a look at my pieces, and right here I see that I have overlap in foil that isn't even. So I like to take an X-Acto knife. You do not have to do this step, but it is what I prefer. And then you can remove that little bit of foil. So you have a nice straight edge. If you don't do this, your solder is going to adhere anywhere there is foil and it will be uneven. So that's a finished piece. I already have the other pieces foiled for you so that we can move on to soldering. I'm going to plug in my soldering iron. Whether you're a beginner or you've been a glasser for a number of years, you want a really nice quality iron. It doesn't always mean really big bucks. The one that I like runs between $80 and $100 and they last for years and years. So this is one that I like in particular. My best advice is to not go the really cheap route and make sure that whatever you get is actually a stained glass soldering iron, because there are a lot of irons that are good for electronics or other things. So definitely check that that's the proper use for what you buy. So the first step in this is applying flux. Flux comes in a lot of varieties. I use a gel flux. It's my favorite because it doesn't dry quickly. And what we're going to do is pre-tin all of our pieces. What that means is we're going to apply solder to all the pieces first, and then we will put everything together. This is generally the way that we build something when it's in 3-dimension. When you're building a 2-dimensional project or panel, you don't need to do this because all of your pieces are going to fit together around all the edges. So go ahead and grab your solder. You want to go nice and smooth. You don't want to go too fast. You don't want to go too slow. Copper foil, I always joke and say it has an MO to come off the glass. It just wants to come off and get out of there. So the better that we adhere it whenever we're foiling, the better chance we have of it holding our pieces tightly. So that's why our foiling process needs to be pretty detailed. So what you do on one side, you have to do on the other side. Everywhere you see copper foil, you have to apply flux and solder. That is the name of the game in stained glass. And there are a lot of different ways to hold a soldering iron. There are different ways to apply flux. Whatever your preference is and whatever works for you is great. This just happens to be what I use and how I like to do it. You'll notice whenever I solder, if you're a beginner, I'm not using any painting motions. I'm using these very decisive, continuous motions with my soldering iron. A lot of times what I see a beginner do, because they want to be so careful with their glass and their foil, that they end up trying to use this like a paintbrush. And it doesn't transfer heat very well. So you need to stay slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race. So after I have applied my solder to the top and bottom, I have to now do that to my edges. And if you feel like your glass is hot, you can use pliers or a towel to hold. Mine is not hot currently, so I feel pretty comfortable with it. So now you just want to do the outside edge of every piece to continue the soldering. After I have my 6 pieces done, I'm going to inspect everything, make sure I have complete coverage. And I don't want to see any copper foil peeking through the solder anywhere. If I have any, I got to cover it up. Otherwise, copper foil cannot take the black patina that I'm going to use at the end, and you'll just have a copper spot sticking out in your piece. Okay, so we're almost finished. We're going to grab the jig so that we can start building on this. So the idea of this is that the spinner has 3 separate component panels, and then we assemble them all together. This jig does have the link, the tutorial, in the description, and it's pretty cool. You'll see how my husband builds these. So step 1 is I like to put this on its edge like this. You want to face your pieces together in this way. They should all connect on the short run on either side of your curve. So I'm going to hold this up to my jig. I'm going to get it centered. I already have flux on there from when I was using it earlier. Right now, I just want to attach these. I don't need to finish them yet. I just need to get them attached and tight. So I'm going to attach the next 2 panels together. This will finish off our second set. Okay, this is our 3rd set of panels. And then comes the fun part, is assembling everything together. It is important to get it lined up. We want some symmetry and some squareness to what we're doing. Otherwise, when we get to the end, our project isn't going to square up as well. So I dropped just a little bit of solder right there. Kind of in the wrong spot. There we go. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so we have our 3 panels. This is why we have a 3-dimensional jig, because now we can connect everything together at the end. The best way to go about this is you want to attach one section at a time. We don't want to tack everything at the same time. So I'm going to grab my solder and I'm just going to tack this so we know that it's together. There we go. And now I'm going to turn this in this direction so that I can get to this one a little bit more easily. And we're going to tack that. And for our last bit, we're going to tack this guy. And that, although we have more soldering to do to reinforce, that is how we create a 3-dimensional spinner on a jig. So we can go ahead and move our jig out of the way. We're finished with that. And now we need to reinforce our spinner. We want to make it really strong in case you want to put it outside. So I'm going to go ahead and apply my solder to the rest of my joints. Now, if you want to make this a really smooth look, think of flattening out your solder in the joint. You don't want it to be too thin and not have quite enough. So I'm going to wait for that to cool. There we go. And that gives that really nice smooth finish. If you watch the next time I do that, you'll see that I don't run off of the edge of my project. I go to the end. If I were to run off the edge, then that's where my solder would go. Solder flows where you go. I'm going to turn it over. I want to do the same thing to the other side. Remember not to scoop your solder after you pick it up. We're working with surface tension. And if you do this with your iron, you're going to lose your solder. Okay, so we're going to let that guy cool. Great. So right now we're just reinforcing all of these joints so that they have no movement and they have a lot of structural integrity. Now I want to go through these smaller ones. So as you can see, there's a whole lot of soldering to this one. But it's really different than a lot of projects because we do not make the same raised lines as a two-dimensional project with this. We're going to turn it over. We should have just a couple more. Okay, so now it's pretty strong, reinforced. I don't think it's going anywhere. We're going to grab the rest of the things that we need to finish our spinner. So this is the hanger on our spinner that's going to go at the top. This is our really cool dangly piece that's going to go in the middle. We have a swivel hanger. And this is going to attach that really cool tree resin dangly right in the middle. Okay, so we need to make a little magic happen. So we want to put this little piece in first. So this is how you're going to attach this dangly onto your stained glass spinner. And as you see, we have a curve in the middle. So we're going to curve this to match just a little bit. And now we are going to see how close we are to one of these inside curves, and that looks really good to me. So we want to put flux on our wire, flux on our glass. Going to switch hit with my left hand here a little bit, if I can. All right, so I'm going to get my wire lined up, and I'm going to tack. Once I have that side tacked, it is pretty strong, so we don't need our pliers anymore. Okay, we're tacked. We're going to add a really nice finishing bead when we're finished with the whole thing. But that is the desired effect. And we need to attach a hanger. Please put your hanger at the top so that it dangles in the right direction. You want to make sure that you put your swivel hanger on this hanger before you put it on. Otherwise, you won't be able to get it back on there. Okay, let's go ahead and flux our wire. And we're going to attach one side of our hanger. There you go. So once one side is attached, it's easier to do the rest of the work. Here's the other side that we need to attach. And again, we're going to smooth everything out. Okay, so let's get to a little bit of smoothing here. You really want to make the wire look like it is seamless. And in order to do that, you just have to apply a little bit more flux. And solder. Okay. Let's clean up this inside piece just a little bit. Let's give this a really nice finished line as well. And you have just created a 3D stained glass spinner with me. As with every project, you're going to want to wash this, patina, and apply a polish if you would like, so that you can have your finished product look like this. We will have tutorials on all of those steps on our channel as well. Thank you for joining me today. Be sure to like and subscribe for more tutorials, and don't forget to tag Wildflower Studio in your finished pieces. Thanks.